Welcome everyone to Dungeon Cat Gaming. I'm here today to do a little presentation on beginner painting. First thing I gotta say is you gotta have the right tools for the job. When you're first starting out, I would not say go out and get, the high-end paintbrushes. You can if you want. I wouldn't, because you're probably not going to know how to maintain them yet. If you got a friend who's going to sit there and teach you how to do that right off the bat, go for it. Especially if they're going to, sit there, teach you all that. But until you learn that, I'd stay away from them, because you're gonna run through them quickly, and it's gonna chalk you up, and it's gonna start costing you a lot of money to replace them. I'd more go towards the cheaper end brushes so that you can replace them quicker. You're gonna want a good paint cup. Citadel actually makes a really good one. I don't talk up much from Citadel. But hell, my paint cup from Citadel, very well used, very well loved. I literally cannot say anything bad about it. I love this thing to death. It's saved my paint brushes quite a few times. And one of the biggest keys is you're gonna have to learn to thin your paints out. Paint thinning is a key lesson to learn. One of the easiest ways to do it is to get yourself a wet palette. And on that note, the best beginner's wet palette I can think of is one that I am still using to this day, which is the Army Painter's wet palette. It's relatively cheap. It is pretty much the perfect size for any miniatures project you might have. The replacements are cheap. They come in a great quantity, two sponges, 50 paper sheets, and they're a great deal, great price. I'm not sponsored by any of these companies, by the way, but hell, if they want to, I'll take it. But yeah, those are my recommendations for beginning materials: is cheap brushes, a very good paint cup. You don't want to you can use a standard cup. Just don't ever leave your brushes tipped down. You'll end up destroying the bristles. You always want to leave them flat across the surface. And you're gonna want some kind of wet palette. Really recommend the Army Painter. It'll help you thin your paints out, and you'll get more use out of your paints that way. Yeah, those are my recommendations. Let's get to painting. You always want to shake up your paints beforehand. For that, I always recommend a paint shaker. You can find some on Amazon. You can do it by hand. You'll never get quite as good of a mixing, but Now, when it comes to priming, I always like to prime black because anything that I can't get to when painting is already taken care of. So I don't have to go back and repaint it black. It's already taken care of. Some people like to prime their main color, so then they don't have to go back over and paint it their main color. If you're going to be using speed paints, you will be priming white. It's just the nature of the beast with speed paints. And then once you get into the more advanced methods, there's more advanced methods of priming and base coating and doing all these other things that I don't get into. I don't particularly like them. I prefer more basic methods. Yeah. And more astute Warhammer Space Marine players will already have picked up that this is not a standard Gladius tank. I have modified it a little. The whole reason you want to thin out your paints is if you don't thin it out enough, when it dries, it will glop up, and a lot of the details and that will actually be covered up by thicker paint. Whereas if you thin it out, when it dries, the water will evaporate and the paint will more fill in the contours of the model itself, and a lot of the detail in that will come out in the model itself. So that's why you really want to make sure to thin your paints out. You will also notice that towards the front of my model, it's a lot rougher. That's because I've, once again, more modified this model with a more advanced technique that I'll go over in a video more down the line. It's a technique of making heavy armor plate that I'm actually very enthusiastic about. I just discovered it myself, and I'm going to be using it a lot more often. I really like it. I really like how it comes out. Adds a lot more character to your models. Now, the biggest bit of advice I can give you is there's no right way to paint a model. You will find your own way to get to a result. Never take what someone says as the gospel. Take what they say and then make it work for you. Take their result and then find your way to it. You don't ever have to follow them directly, because what they do may not work for you. Like, many people don't understand why when I paint, I fully cover my prime, except what I can't get to with my base coat. It's just the way I do things. It's what works for me. And speaking of base coats, you may have to apply more than one layer, especially if you thin your paints out properly. 2 to 3 layers is about what you'll need to apply. This is a perfect point to show. Every now and then you will put on paint a little thicker than you want to. When that happens on especially larger models like this, you can go back before it dries, and just pick that paint up and start spreading it around to the point where you get that paint to that right thickness that you wanted in the first place. To where you save that detail. I hope those basic tips helped you out today, and thanks for joining me. Come back for the next one and I'll go over a couple more advanced basic techniques that you can use, and we'll finish this tank up on that one. Thanks for joining us at Dungeon Cat Gaming. If you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe, and thanks for joining.